Hello and welcome back to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for tuning in for yet another video. This time around, a little bit delayed. Sorry about that, guys, but it's our weekend recap, really with the Stock Watch segment where we analyze the players whose stocks went up or down based on their performances. An action-packed weekend again as we approach the end of the season. Braden, straight to the point. Again, now we're doing a more free-flowing discussion. What do you think was the most relevant thing? Was it a stock up? Was it a stock down? Who gets your pick?
So for my most relevant stock move to start, I'm gonna go for Malik Tillman. I think I just mentioned him actually a couple weeks back, but he seems to be a regular in the stock up. He's having an incredible season. This time on Thursday, in probably the only notable Thursday game, 2 goals and an assist within a span of 4 minutes. 7th minute, he goes and he gets an assist. 9th minute, he scores his first, and then 11th minute, he scores his second. And it's 3-0 immediately after 11 minutes for PSV. They end up winning 8-0 for Serginho Dest, his number, after that season-ending injury, unfortunately. But Tillman winning man of the match there with a huge impact, all just in the first 11 minutes, really. But an incredible game from him, and I think 8-0 is the biggest win of the season, and it all but secures their Eredivisie title for them. Technically, Feyenoord can catch them now on points, but they're 30 goals up in goal difference. Realistically, the Eredivisie title is secured, and one more point will do that anyway in this next coming week. So looking forward to that for the Eredivisie, for the PSV boys. But Tillman's been incredible this season. Definitely the highlight of them. I think Dest has been very good as well, Eredivisie team of the season. But I think Tillman's been underrated. He leads all U23 players in the Eredivisie in big chances created this season, and that's in his first year in the league too, making the step up from Rangers, who, it has to be said, play in a very subpar league. They were playing Champions League, and there were some big challenges for him last season, but I feel like he didn't really play as well in the bigger games, kind of similar to CCV, maybe with Celtic. But the fact that he's taken this step up to PSV and he's performing in the Champions League and against the top teams in the Eredivisie as well in a much harder league, I think he shows just the tremendous growth that he has, and I think it's going to be a very interesting summer as well. There's a very decent chance that Bayern might decide to keep him after his performances.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm so happy about this season. More of that on the season review, but yeah, that's a great shout. Now for the stock up portion, which is going to be the most relevant one that I picked, was actually a stock up, was Weah. I think that, the sad injury that happened to Serginho Dest, there's definitely a void there, which would be naturally filled by Scally. However, Weah, who hasn't had the best of seasons, to be fair, had a very good time when he played at the game that we saw all the Americans involved. Very nice as well to see that. But I thought that Weah did really well against Lyon. Really good match for him, solid. I'm not going to make it up and say that he was amazing, but I do think it was very solid against one of the best wingers that he could play against in that league. And I think that maybe because of the versatility, he has just cemented himself into the conversation of playing as a right back, maybe starting, since Scally hasn't had a stellar season either. So I thought that was relevant. It came out of nowhere, really. I didn't expect Weah to be getting a stock up this late on the season as a right back, especially considering what I thought his season was going to be in the summer. But yeah, I have to pick it. I think it's a nice alternative for us to have. Now, moving on to the second most relevant thing that you think happened this weekend, Brandon. What was it?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Yunus Musa also played right back in that game. So maybe a new battle to watch between two players who maybe shouldn't be starting for the USMNT, but there's a spot opened up, and maybe they'll be fighting for it this summer. But for speaking of players who might not be starting this summer, I'm going to go for Tyler Adams for my second most relevant stock pick, and it's going to be a stock down, unfortunately. He's now approaching being out for another month at least, and we don't know at all when he's going to be back. There's no timetable. He came back briefly, finally making his return from injury, and it's kind of a similar situation to what we saw back in September. He came back off the bench, played one game, re-aggravated his injury, and it was serious again. Now he came back, got subbed on against Luton, and apparently 19 minutes in the Premier League was enough for the USMNT to be like, okay, yeah, he's fit, call him up and play him almost a full 90 minutes over 2 games, of course. But in the Nations League, He comes back to Bournemouth, plays a stellar 90 minutes for Bournemouth against Everton, wins man of the match, a tremendous performance from him. Then their midweek game, he's on the bench with a little bit of a re-aggravated back thing. We didn't think it'd be too bad since he was in the squad immediately. And now, a month later, he hasn't been in the matchday squad since, and we have no timetable on when he's going to be back. We don't even know if he'll be back by the end of the season, if he'll be fully fit for Copa America. At this point, I don't see how we can trust him to be fully fit for Copa America, just considering his past injury situations this season. Luckily, we have Johnny Cardoso at that position, but to be honest, we need both to be fully ready and fully fit for that tournament, especially if we're going to contend against some of the bigger opponents. So I think this is a huge concern for Tyler and a huge concern for the team as well.
Yeah, it really is such a huge blow. And I'm going to point the finger to Greg on this one because I don't think there was a necessity to play Tyler so much over the Nations League. Again, you're a manager. You're supposed to manage time. It's one of the things that you do have to keep an eye on. And the whole minutes restriction thing, I think it was a little bit unnecessary since we had a player that hadn't been used. But anyways, talking about players that aren't used, I'm going to pick Mark McKenzie. I know that he's not a big name for a lot of people, but for me, it's really relevant that sadly they got slapped around again. And I think it's relevant because of his aspirations, probably a move. I do believe that he likely wants to move during the summer, but against some of the best opposition in his league, they lost again. This time was a little bit better, 3-0, but he had a bad mistake that led to a goal. I don't think that he was bad all around during the match, but that was a moment. I think that his passing is getting better. I think his timing is something that he could improve on, especially when the ball's in the air. But yeah, the loss again, 3-0. And most importantly, if he stays around, now they're going to have to play, well, it's looking like they're going to have to play the Europa Conference League playoff. So that's really a water to wine if you can get a qualification to Europa League, but then drop into the Conference League playoffs. So I think that if he had some stronger performances at this time, maybe it's not all due to him, it's due to the club, but he could be in the contention right there for a call-up during the summer, since I think now we should de facto be transitioning from the post-ring era, and I think he's probably one of the names that would emerge on that one. But moving on to hopefully a brighter note, Braden, is it a stock up or a stock down on your third most relevant?
It is going to be another stock up for number 3, and it's going to be a player who is kind of on the fringes of the USMNT roster, making a late push to maybe be included in the summer for Copa America. It's going to be Alejandro Zendejas from Club America. I think he's been excellent, especially since the Liga MX has resumed for their second part of the season, the Clausura. I think he's been really, really good. He had a spell from March to the start of April where he had 7 goals and 3 assists within 8 games, and he didn't somehow manage to get a pick in Stockwatch throughout all of that, which I think is kind of incredible and unlucky for him. I guess maybe there was some more relevant performances. Maybe we made the mistake by not picking him, but I'm going to pick him now. He just scored midweek a crucial goal in the CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinal against Pachuca in the first leg. Club America's only goal in that game, a 1-1 draw. They're going to have a big second leg coming up. Actually, as this video is released, it's going to be later on tonight. So a huge game for them. If they win, they'll go to the final. If they lose, it's still a run to be proud of going to the semifinal. But obviously they want to win and try to compete for another trophy this season, top of Clausura as well. I think it's been an incredible season for Club America, and Zendejas has been at the center of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't it be nice if Mexican clubs were just a little bit not so tight on their players and watch Zendejas get a move during the summer? I think it would be nice. Now, moving on to my pick, it's going to be a very mainstream player. It's going to be Folarin Balogun. He got an assist if you look into the stats and if you love looking at apps. However, go watch the assist that he got. It also counted as a big chance missed because, well, it wasn't really an assist. He missed the goal, and the ball touches him, goes off to his teammate, and then he scores. It wasn't really an assist, guys. If I had that assist, I wouldn't call it one. And I think that getting subbed off at halftime again shows, and again, with the manager saying that he's getting subbed off not because he's a bad player, but he needs to adapt. Well, it's late in the season and he hasn't really adapted. He has had good goal contributions, so that shows the caliber of player that he is, but it's far from reasonable season that he probably wished that he had at the beginning with the performances and the type of goals that he had. So again, a stock down because I don't think it's going to do him much confidence to get subbed off at halftime. And again, towards the end of the season, Pepe's on a bit of a slump too, so that's a little unfair. But Pepe isn't firing all cylinders by any means. So I think that would be ideal to have Balogun on a real high before Copa America, and it hasn't really happened. So maybe we do have a problem at the 9 after all. So moving on to your next pick, Braden.
So for my fourth pick, I'm going to pick another stock down, and it's going to be Gabriel Slonina, the on-loan goalkeeper at Eupen. I thought it today, not today, but this past weekend was one of his worst performances of the season for them, and it came at a horrible time. Ended up losing 2-1 to Charleroi, and he really didn't play too well in that game. Made 2 saves, conceded 2 goals, didn't really do too well on either of them. And Eupen are now all but officially relegated. There is still a scenario where they can stay up. They'd have to win out both of their remaining games and have all of the other results go their way, and even then they'd still be in the relegation playoff against a team from the second division trying to come up. So basically they're screwed, which doesn't affect Slonina in the long run because we know he's on loan. He's going to be going back to Chelsea in the summer, probably going on another loan move to maybe a slightly bigger club, just try to progress his career in the summer and for next season. But having a relegation on your CV as such a young player isn't necessarily the best thing to start off, especially as a goalkeeper. I think the Eupen haven't done him any favors at all, and his team didn't do him any favors by choosing to accept this loan because the defense they have is shambolic. And honestly, with the amount of chances the Eupen give up, the amount of good shots and goal chances that the opposing teams have against them every game, Slonina's bound to have a couple of games where he makes mistakes. It's just the high volume of the situation that he's in. He's constantly facing a barrage of shots. We've seen so many games this season where he's making 7-8 saves and still conceding 4 goals. That's not good for a goalkeeper's confidence, especially for a goalkeeper as young as him. The bright side is he's still 19. He still has his entire career ahead of him. But honestly, I think some of his performances this season may have lost him the Olympic starting spot in favor of Patrick Schulte, who's been more consistent at probably a higher level. So not great for Slonina there. He still has a lot of time to get his career back on track, hopefully make a better loan move for next season. But I think overall, this season has probably done him more harm than good.
Absolutely. It's a little bit concerning that he always, this weekend and as with some previous matches, he concedes more than the expected goals that he's expected to concede. But again, his defense is so bad. It probably affects a little bit with the mentality that, well, I'm going to get another shot through right here, and it's tough. So, yeah, well, I'm talking about Olympic eligible players. This is another one that maybe has a contention to be within the roster. Rokas Pukstas had a very active weekend where he scored twice. And scored an own goal too, so he got a hat trick there, kind of. But it was against. I'm gonna pick up or down. I guess it's up because he gets goals, but it's a sideways bit of stock move right here because I think that they were playing the worst team in the league by far. 2 goal contributions ultimately. I think it does raise some attention. More eyes are going to be turning towards him. And again, it's so unfortunate that he didn't get to play in any camps with the group because I think that he would be a really nice fit there. It's a very stacked position as well, but this late in the season, Split kind of bottled it, but he gets 2 goal contributions right there, 3 if you want to count it. And very active weekend for him. It would be nice to see him get a move, just get him moving out of there. And just 2 goals, a brace in a game is probably going to draw some attention, and that's a stock up in itself. So moving on to the last one that you think is the most relevant, Braden.
Yeah, for my last stock move, it's going to be another stock up, and it's going to be my boy Paxten Aaronson making the move to Vitesse. Obviously, there's been a lot of turmoil at Vitesse. We know the 18-point deduction. They were on negative points, which is absolutely unheard of. I think the 18-point deducted is an Eredivisie record. And they're going to finish on confirmed, no matter what happens in the last couple games, they're going to finish on a record low points total in the Eredivisie. But Paxten was the man of the match by far, scoring a brace, including the match winner, that ultimately got Vitesse back out of the negatives and into the positive point total to salvage something up to 2 points on the season. If without the point deduction, they would actually not be last. They'd still probably be getting relegated, but they'd at least be ahead of Volendam. I think Paxten's been probably the only bright spot for them this season. They've had one or two other good individual players, Kozlowski, Haj Musa, but as a team, it's clear that Vitesse have failed to gel. Although the improvement since Paxten arrived on loan in January is evident to see. They were dead in the water. He came in, they won a couple games, got some important draws, looked like, okay, maybe they could fight it back against relegation a little bit, then got the deduction. It was kind of just an unfortunate situation for them, considering their ownership and their past ownership. But it is what it is. It doesn't really affect Paxton's career in the long run. All that matters is that he's performing well at an individual level, which he has been. He got an excellent performance, made Eredivisie Team of the Week across basically every platform that published one, along with Malik Tillman, of course. I think he's had a very successful loan despite all of the horrible situation that's been going on in Vitesse. And Frankfurt, the staff over at Frankfurt, the scouts have been watching him closely and have had nothing good things to say. Looking like he might be going on another loan next season, which I think is actually good. Maybe to a lower Bundesliga club or a higher level Eredivisie club. I'm looking forward to seeing that next season and probably buying another jersey as well.
Yeah, that jersey looks nice, and I think it's a very different situation as opposed to Slonina's, because this time, well, he has a relegation on his CV, but he did the best that he could, and honestly, he grew from this even mentally wise. So really nice for Paxten. I think that he's so underrated by the fan base now because his brother gets so much hate. They kind of combine, thinking they're the same player, kind of, with some of the pre-assumptions, but so happy for him, and I hope he will be crucial for us in the Olympics. Moving on from that very positive to another negative for me, a little bit pessimistic this week here, but also, again, another center back. It's going to be Austin Trusty. I think that it's absolutely shambolic to watch the way that Sheffield plays, and I would be actually concerned about next season for them. I don't really see anything in this. Well, they do have the money coming in, so financially they could set themselves up, but I think that in the squad, the roster right now, I think it would actually struggle to make the playoffs in the championship. They're playing so bad. I think it's absolutely horrible. And it's not entirely Trusty's fault. He plays in a very bad and unstable is the word. It's an understatement to say the least. But yeah, I'm going to have to pick Trusty because, again, we're trying to prepare for the post-Ream era. And Ream comes out and gives us interviews where he wants to play in the next World Cup. Well, maybe he just might because I don't think he will, but I don't think that anyone's really emerging and stepping up, and it's not really entirely all up to them. But another bad performance for Trusty and for Sheffield doesn't do any good for the confidence, and we need our players to be confident, especially in the back line. But that brings it to an end of the Stock Watch analysis. Now, of the ones that we have on our watch for the following week, this week, Braden, again, end of the season, who do you have up there?
Yeah, so my player to watch for this week is actually not a player at all. It's going to be a manager. Some have called him the American Julian Nagelsmann. Fabian Hürseler, the manager of St. Pauli in the second Bundesliga, just 31 years old, and he's already taken over St. Pauli, who some of you guys might know from their historic DFB Pokal win over Borussia Dortmund a couple of years back. He was an assistant manager at the time, but since then he's been promoted to the first team boss very, very quickly. I mean, for a 31-year-old, and he was 29 at the time of promotion to first team manager, the youngest coach in that league, and he's got them top of the league in first place. And if they do get at least one more point this coming week, they could officially secure promotion to the Bundesliga for the first time since the 2010-2011 season. And only for the third time this century that they'd be playing, or since the turn of the century at least, that they'd be playing in the top flight. An incredible achievement for Fabian, who was born in Houston to a German parent and a Swiss parent. It's clear that the German influence is there, like we've seen with the Pellegrino Matarazzo, who isn't German, but he's been managing in Germany for a while. Jesse Marsch managed in Germany for a while. It seems to be a good route for American managers. But I think he's honestly a prodigy at such a young age, doing so well. He's a manager to watch for the future. Selfishly, I'd love to have him as a USMNT boss in a while's time. I mean, he still has his entire managerial career ahead of him, being so young. But at some point, I'd love to see him take over the USMNT because I think he might already be the best American manager in the world, and his stock's only going to keep growing. Like I said, compared to Nagelsmann, and we know how good of a manager Nagelsmann is. So if he can even reach close to that level, it's a huge improvement on what we have. No disrespect to Matarazzo or Jesse Marsch, but realistically, the level isn't that high. And then for my sleeper pick, it's going to be a newly discovered dual national. Aiden Dausch, the striker from Coventry City, recently made his debut, coming on for Haji Wright actually on Saturday against Blackburn in their draw. Their season is unfortunately officially over. They mathematically have been eliminated from the playoffs, but that is good for players like Dausch, the 17-year-old who now has 2 more games left in the season that realistically don't mean much, and maybe he can get extended opportunities. He was on the bench before that in the midweek game, and it's just nice to see more dual nationals emerging. He has clear interest in the USMNT. Actually, the way he was discovered was through his Instagram follows. He didn't have anything in his bio or anything, but he was following the USMNT, the youth national teams, some of the players as well. We did some digger deeping, and turns out he is eligible. He's officially added the US flag to his bio, and honestly, I think he's someone who we should look at for the U20 team in the summer. It might be crazy to say since we don't really know a lot about this kid, but we've seen some highlights him playing for Coventry City's U21s. And he looks like a really good player. And to have already made his championship debut at the age of 17, he's a full age year younger than all of our strikers from the past U19 camp. They're all 05s. He's an 06 birthday. And honestly, I think career-wise, he's accomplished more than them already. So he needs to be at least in consideration for that. We don't know whether he'd accept the call, of course, because he is still eligible for England, and being one of the brightest young talents at Coventry, maybe he'd be considered for England's youth national team soon. But I think it's worth a shot to reach out, and I think he'd be a very valuable asset to have in the future.
Absolutely, and that's such a shame that we didn't give each other stopwatches for the following week, because I also have him, and for very, very similar arguments. Well, I'm just going to add one thing more. I agree with you on the point that he has accomplished more than other players, and that's mostly because if you think about it, Knight Pickering, which is a player that I like, the consistency is not there for USL. Would he ever be given a debut in the championship? Absolutely not. That league is really, really tough to be given a debut as a striker that young with the frame that he has as well. It leads me to believe that there's a lot of skill there and tenacity. We saw the mentality with this backstory as well, having trials with multiple clubs and then ending up making it, sticking with it, and making it at a very high level as well. Coventry is not a joke. That's a good club. We saw the run that they had, and a very, very good level for him. So definitely, I think that now that the season's basically done, I'm happy their manager gave him a run. Hopefully he gets to play a few more minutes. That's really encouraging to see. What a W for Coventry, honestly. So happy for them for the season, what they've done for the Americans as well there. Now, my main pick is going to be Johnny Cardozo. Well, mostly because it's tied to your pick for the most relevant thing that happened. Tyler Adams is out of action. I agree with you. I don't think he's too reliable. We shouldn't really count on having him for a debut or even for full matches. I don't think he's going to be playing full matches at the Copa America. There's going to be some type of minute restriction, also fatigue. And again, all these injuries all across his body is just because he was off for such a long time. So it does catch up to your other muscles to get it up to speed to the game. So Johnny's going to be crucial. Again, they are battling for positions in Europe. Every game counts a lot. It was nice to see him have a bit of a fight there with Lamela. For those of you that understand Portuguese, it's nice to see what he said to Lamela as well. It was just funny, but I'm definitely going to keep an eye on him. I think he's the most important player for us to end the season on a high, because where he plays on the pitch, the teams are going to be facing, the teams we want to face in Copa America, absolutely crucial for Johnny to be performing. So definitely my mainstream player to watch. Now, this brings it to a close on this video. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Sorry for the bit of a delay. Thank you so much for all of the likes and comments on the previous video we've done. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share this one with your friends, and let us know what you thought about our picks, what you thought about Braden's jersey. That jersey is amazing, honestly. Maybe you should do a short review, and it looks really nice. But thank you so much, guys, and have a good one. We'll see you next time.